No.
And I remember Diana. Where's Diana? There she is down there. And finally, somebody who shows me their face. Way to go, Guadalupe Rodriguez. Do you go by Lupe or Guadalupe or what?
Yeah, I prefer Lupe.
I'm sorry?
It's better.
I'm sorry, I still missed it. Do you prefer Lupe?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, where on my list here? There it is. All right. And then Lorraine, I got Ariana, Mandy, Isabel. Okay, we got a second face. Way to go. And that is Gali, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then there is Arpad down there. And then there's Sebastian and Ilani. Let's see. All right. So far, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 12, including me. Okay. So how's everybody? Just happy as heck to be back finally off a break. Everybody happy? Break is a bad thing, I'm sure. No, I love the break. Man, what a good one too. It was like 5 weeks long. Doesn't get any better than that. Cynthia, hello. Ashley, hello.
Hi. I'm here.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Super. Never better. Let's see, I've got about 3 more to go here. I'm going to give them just a couple more minutes. There comes Kendra. Now I'm down to 2 more. Hello, Kendra.
Hello.
I know Selma's not going to be here today, so let's see. Be there, and I'm looking for Christina. I don't see a Christina here. Jen, are you in my 310 class also?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I knew it was 2. I knew one was Sebastian, and I thought you were the second one. Okay, good. And let's see. Now down to who am I missing? All right, so we'll just watch for Christina to come. Well, I hope everybody's good, had a good break, all ready to start another spring semester. They seem so long at this end of the semester. 15 weeks is for like forever. I've got at least one person who's missing. Let's see. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and record this so that they can see me go through the various things that we're going to talk about. if you don't mind. If you do mind, you're always free to turn your camera off. Although later I'd much appreciate it if you would turn your cameras on for the next couple of weeks. But I'm going to do this recording just for the person that I know is missing. So if you would like to turn it off, fine. If you'd rather not, I'd love to see faces. I feel so lonesome when all I see are these little black boxes with white names. All right, so I'm going to record on this
Meeting
computer,
is being
and we can
recorded.
go ahead and just get ready and get started. So as you might know, my name is John Armour, and this is TESL 301. And we are going to be doing what I think has got to be the coolest class in the program. You may not think it's the coolest class, but I do. And I took a class like this. Geez, I'm 67 now. I was probably about 54. And I've been talking English and speaking English all my life. And suddenly I take this, the equivalent of this course, the graduate course, and realize, geez, I've been using this language all this time, never knowing that most of the things that are going on are going on. And it's pretty wild too when you think about it, because this is something we do every day. Most of us didn't get taught how to speak. We just kind of picked it up. Nobody taught us how to listen. We just kind of picked it up. If you've already taken 341, you've already gone through things where they talked about language acquisition. But this is the place where you really begin to see, wow, this language thing is really quite complicated. And it's amazing that little kids can do it and old people can do it. So we're going to look at language as we go through this at a level that you've probably never thought of it before, unless you've had linguistics before. You've probably never been taught it before. And some of this stuff is things, well, oh, as teachers, you may not actually teach in a classroom, but it is for your benefit to understand how these things happen and how language works, because when you've got English language learning students, you're going to be using certainly the knowledge that you use. Even if you don't teach these specific techniques, they'll be very helpful for you. So with that, I really want you to enjoy the course. I'm going to say most people kind of find it kind of difficult. It's not an easy slide through a class. As I've said many times when I've taught this class, this one, 301 and 310 are like the two technical courses in the program. And they require you to really work with this stuff, much like, and I like to equate it to an algebra class. You can sit in an algebra class and listen very well, but you're not going to pick it up unless you do some practicing with it. That's going to be true in 301 with me anyway, and 310 with me as well. And so there will be a lot of homework exercises to do, but those are meant to be practice for you. Now, with all of that as kind of a jumping off place, I'm going to go through the syllabus. And so I'm going to go ahead and share a copy of it here on the screen, right there, so that we can kind of walk through this together. It's important to really understand what's here and what the basic policies of the class are. And the one thing that you will hear me say over and over and over again is, if you have a question, you need to get back with me. If you're having trouble understanding something, I'm available to you. So I want you to feel free to contact me when you've got a question, when you've got issues that you just don't understand, and any other time you feel like you need to get in touch with me. So let's go ahead and start to talk about linguistics, which essentially this is a course in the fundamentals of linguistics. We're going to be looking at English linguistics, how the English language works, and how we can help describe it to our students. Because there's some places along the line where you're going to have to just explain things. Quite honestly, there'll be things you may never have thought of before. Therefore, you're going to find them rather difficult to explain. What we want to do in this course is give you that background and point out the things that you've always taken for granted so that you can explain them to your students later. Okay? So we're basically going to focus on the fact that most of you are planning to be future teachers, and we're going to work through the language starting with sounds, individual sounds. We're going to work those sounds into groups of sounds. We're going to take those groups of sounds and we're going to start looking at words and different things that we can do to words to change their meaning. We're going to look how those words end up in phrases and how those phrases end up in sentences, and basically how the language is used and its structure. Okay? You can read all of that in the course description, but basically we're going to be looking at some things called phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and something called pragmatics. So all of these things are going to be some of the topics that we look at. And if you were anything like me when I took this course, most of those words meant very little. And so we want to make sure that as we walk out of here at the end of the semester, you've got a good handle on all of those words, their definitions and meanings. Okay? So there is no prerequisite to this course. And since there is no prerequisite to the course, I don't really expect you to know any of those words that I've just used. That's why you're here. So we're going to start looking at them. I said my name was John Armour. I've been here at NEIU teaching probably, I think, 11 years. And I've been teaching, probably 9 of those years, I've been teaching in the TESL program, either for the undergraduate students in the minor or some graduate classes, usually for in-service teachers who are trying to get their endorsements. Also students, graduate students who are in the certificate program, and a few regular MA students also. So I've been teaching a lot of these classes for quite some time. My preference is that if you try to figure out how to address me, my preference is you just call me John, okay? I don't need a Mr., I don't need a professor, I don't need a doctorate, I don't need anything other than plain old John. And that's what I would prefer, okay? So that's the easy way to get around that. One simple syllable, not much to remember. Okay, as far as my office hours go, I'm going to have office hours Monday through Thursday at various times. On Mondays and Wednesdays, they're going to be from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 5. And those are going to be solely Zoom. I won't be on campus on Mondays and Wednesdays. So from 4 to 5, we will use Zoom. It's the same Zoom address that you're on right now. We'll use that for classes for the first couple of weeks here, as well as Zoom. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, when you guys will be coming on campus for the class at 12:15, I will be having office hours in my office from 11 to 12. And for those who aren't there by then, or if you're not coming in, or for some reason, I will also turn on Zoom so that people can get in touch with me for the Tuesday, Thursday office hours in person or via Zoom, whichever works better for you. And other times by appointment, if my time schedule here doesn't work with you, let me know and we will figure out a different time to meet. And if you see me in my office and it's not office hours, you're free to stop by anytime. I don't try to hold strictly to only allowing you to come see me during office hours. If you see me there, come in. If by chance I'm too busy to talk for some reason at that moment, I'll let you know. But otherwise, I'm generally available during any time I'm in my office. So I'm here for you either on these office hours or, as the next couple of things talk about, by phone. My office phone is right there. It's the same one that's in the directory if you look it up on Newport. But I also want you to have my mobile phone. So my mobile phone is there. And if you need to call me, you can feel free to call me on my mobile phone. You can feel free to text me on my mobile phone. I'd much rather be able to make sure I'm available to you than thinking that you can only talk to me during certain times. So while I might be unlike you in that I'm not real tethered to my phone, and I may come home and put it in the charger and not hear your call or not hear the text, I will get back to you just as soon as I can. But you gotta feel free to contact me, okay? Whether that's my office phone, face-to-face in my office, by Zoom, or by cell phone or office phone. Either one is fine. One thing I would ask if you text me, and that is simply tell me who you are, because I won't have a clue as to who you are, because your phone numbers aren't in my phone. And so I would appreciate it if you tell me who you are so I know who I'm talking to. If for some reason you can't get my office hours, my Zoom, or my telephone, you can always write me on my email address, which is right there. And then once again, we've got the Zoom that oftentimes we set up special meetings. We may meet by Zoom also. All right, so I was looking for my textbook and it's not sitting right here. But there is the name of the textbook is Linguistics for Non-Linguists, and it's by Parker and Riley. Make sure you get the 5th edition. Using the 5th is the latest edition. You try to use something earlier. We may have differences in the pages that need to be read. Certainly we will see differences in the exercises that are in the homework. I've got a number of other readings that are out here. All right, and so these are all on D2L. You won't have to go out and search them. In fact, as we get ready to go into Thursday, I will expect you to have read this first reading here, 9 Ideas About Language. We're going to be discussing those on Thursday. But all of these are out here. We've got a number of other ones that are here. Largely what I'm trying to do, a couple of these are just new instruction, like the history of English and these 9 ideas about language. But a couple of these, the one by Firth on pronunciation, the one by Stowe down there for teaching morphology. The basic idea behind those articles is they're not going to show up on the test, but what I want you to be able to do is take what we're using or doing in class and be able to take that back and say, this is why I'm learning this. I'm learning this for preparing and presenting information to my students, and in some cases correcting them or giving them new instruction that they need for English. So it's basically kind of tying you into the real world from that standpoint. And I've got these other required readings. If you have your paper there, if you have a copy of the syllabus in front of you, I should have recognized this one. This other required readings is actually going to be optional. You'll see it in the course outline where I said optional. But if you have your paper copy of the syllabus, you might just want to scratch through the word required there and mark it as optional. Some people will find that they get too much information too quickly in the Parker and Riley book, particularly around how sounds are made. And so looking at these 2 books, it helps you to spread that information out a little bit, put it into a little bit more detail, and some people like it that way. Other people find these 2 readings kind of tedious and not very useful, but it's really up to you, whichever you would like to do. But those are going to be options. The other ones will be actually assigned at certain points in the course. Okay, so since I don't have a picture of my, geez, I don't know what I did with it, so I can find it. The Parker and Riley book, if you have questions on that, just let me know. As far as course objectives, the things we want to be able to walk away with when we're done. We are going to discuss the components of language. Like I've already mentioned, we've kind of marked all 6 of these. And we'll talk about those a little bit later to give you an introduction to what the ideas behind them are and what the definitions are. But we want to be able to discuss the components of language from a technical point of view. We want to be able to analyze language data. Part of that is kind of listening to a non-native speaker, looking for the errors that they're making with the idea of finding those errors and helping them get beyond them. So you want to be able to analyze language data to anticipate learning difficulties that your students may have with the English language. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes you will find that speakers of a particular native language will have similar problems when they get to English. If, for instance, well, we've got some people here who are probably Spanish speakers or pretty familiar with Spanish, and you would find that your Spanish-speaking students probably won't have a big problem with articles like the and a and an. But they may have problems with conjugating verbs, or they may have problems with putting adjectives after their nouns instead of before. But if you are a Polish speaker or your students are Polish speakers, you may find them having a real hard problem just with simple articles. So we want to kind of look at, as we go along, we'll talk about different native languages, some of the places where we might see some generalizations about learning problems there. Basically, we want you, as you're going out to become teachers, even if you're not going to be an ESL teacher, you still will run into the need to be able to help your students learn how to use English, whether that's listening or speaking, whether it's reading and writing, grammar, vocabulary, spelling, pronunciation. All of those areas are places where you're going to come back in contact with this information. And like I said, it's not just for ESL teachers. You may find that you're a social studies teacher and pronunciation is a big problem for people. Or you're all going to be teaching reading at some level, or you'll be teaching through reading, so you may have to help with the reading there. And then you should be able to discuss language issues, both with linguists and non-linguists. Those are pretty much our learning objectives for the semester. Okay? I'm going to stop right there and ask if anybody's got any questions up to this point.
Will you tell us when the optional readings will be most helpful?
Sure. In fact, you'll find them in the course outline already. They're in there, so I marked them as optional. It's probably going to be early in the phonology part. Okay, I can't remember. Let's see, what week was it? Imagine it's probably something like week 4. Probably will be when those are beneficial. Okay? Any other questions? All right, here we go. So here's the course policies, okay? And you're going to get really tired of me saying this unless people actually do differently than they've done in other semesters. They actually call me when they got a problem. The most important thing for you to understand out of this course and out of this discussion and the syllabus is, if you don't understand something, and I don't care what it is, anything, you need to contact me. You could do it during office hours. You could do it by phone. You could do it if I'm sitting in my office. You could do it by email. It doesn't matter. but you really need to contact me so that I can give you clarification or direction. Okay? I know, and I've watched this for 10 years. The best students are the ones who are seeking help and seek it early and often. Sometimes I think students must think that we think that dumb students are the ones who see us during office hours or ask for help. But anybody who's been doing this for any length of time realizes that is not the case. The best students are the ones who are actually looking for help and seek it when they need it. So that's why I put in the most important thing in red is get with me whenever you have a problem. If you don't understand the instructions to a exercise, let me know. If you don't understand the instructions for the project that we're going to do this semester, you got to let me know. Okay? Don't let it go and don't do the wrong thing just because you didn't ask. Okay? When we get back in the classroom, turn off electronic devices like laptops and tablets and cell phones, unless you're using them for taking notes or making presentations. A lot of people like to take notes on their computer. I have no problem with that. It's only a problem when it evolves into Facebook, whatever they are. I don't even use them. So anyway, the social media types of things. I need you to be prepared by bringing your book and other assigned materials to class every day. Sometimes that's going to be your homework. Sometimes it's going to be handouts that I give you that I want to be able to discuss with you having something in your hand. So be prepared, bring your textbook, bring any other materials, including homework. We are going to check homework frequently, probably 10 or 12 times, and I do it randomly. I'll walk in one day and say, I want to see your homework for the day. If you've got it, great, you get points. If you don't have it, you don't get points. And it'll build up to be a part of the exam. I'm sorry, the final grade. So make sure you keep up with the homework and you bring it with you. Assignment and homework are due at the beginning of class the day they're due. Not at the end of class, not in the middle, at the beginning. Late project assignments. This is project assignments, not homework. Project assignments lose 10% of the possible points for each day that they're late. These are very important for you to do. So I'm not going to be so silly as to say do it on time or don't do it at all. You need to do it one way or the other. But if you're not able to turn it in on time, you're going to lose points. But at least it's not so drastic like you lose half of the points in the first day it's late. It's 10% per day. Daily homework, on the other hand, is something that I'll look for at the beginning of class, and it's only good if you've got it. If you only have part of it, bring it anyway, because I can certainly give you partial credit for the part of the homework that you did do. But don't forget to bring it with you. And given that it adds up to probably, 10 or 15%, we'll see when I get down to the bottom. I forgot. Homework 10%. It's a whole letter grade. So you want to get those done. Written assignments done outside of class have to be typed. You can use Word, you can use Excel or PowerPoint, you can use the Google equivalents. I can't read pages that come off of a Mac document, so you need to convert them over to one of these other things, either a Microsoft Word document, a Google Doc, or a PDF. And it's important that you do the typing on the written assignments outside of class, not homework, just the written assignments, essentially the project assignments, because if you miss class, you still need to get it to me on time, and you can do that by emailing it to me. So I would suggest you have those ready and you get them into either Microsoft, Google Docs, or PDF. It becomes important if you have to email the work to me because you're ill or something comes up. But your homework does not need to be typed. A lot of people will just take do it inside the textbook, or they'll write up the answers on a separate sheet of paper. As we look at some of those things, particularly the project, I'm going to be looking for good standard academic English. As I said already, it should be properly formatted and typed. You're going to have ELL students, and you're going to have students who have native speaking adults or parents, and they're going to expect to see good examples of good standard English, and you're going to be an example to your students, and your students' teachers are going to want to see that, yep, they're using it properly. So that's something to keep in mind. If you miss class, you're still responsible for finding out, you're still responsible for completing the homework or the projects due that day. As I mentioned before, with the projects, it's got to be typed, and so you can easily email me that document. For the homework, the simplest thing to do is just take a picture of it, okay, with your phone and forward the picture to me in email. That'll work. You should do that anytime you're missing class, because you won't know whether I collected homework that day or not. So if you're going to miss class, take a picture of the homework with your phone and email the pictures. Okay? And if you miss class, you're also responsible for finding out what material was covered and what assignments were made. I'm going to show you where I'll be putting the day's presentations. So you'll have access to that. But if you don't see it, you need to get in touch with one of your classmates, or you need to get in touch with me to find out what the assignments were, so that we can make sure that you're back up to speed. And then you're still responsible for getting them to me at the regular time. Okay? I will be using NMail and D2L to communicate with you. You should do the same with me, because otherwise you could spam out my email or whatever. We're supposed to make sure that we do all of this communication via D2L or NMail. So please use those. I would ask you to check your email once a day. It doesn't take more than a minute. Actually, probably didn't take more than 30 seconds to go in and see if I've sent anything. If I have an update to a class schedule, if something else is going on, you're going to want to get out there and know about it. It'll probably come to you via either email or D2L. So checking those daily doesn't take very long, and it's very important. You don't want to miss any information. I would say you should keep all the copies of your graded work till the end of the semester. That way, if we have any discrepancies or any disagreements, we go back and look at what those scores were, because I've been known to make mistakes and put in the wrong score. So if you've got all of that, at the end, when the grades come out, you're free to talk to me, figure out what we need to do if I made the mistake or you did. Okay? And then the last day to drop the class is way out in April 8th, which I think April 8th is probably, I think it's week 11. So you've got a long time. Don't drop the class too quickly. Don't drop the class at all if you can avoid it. But that would be the last day when you get it doubled. My absence policy, pretty straightforward. Arrive in class on time every day unless you're sick or you have to be someplace else. I take attendance every day, probably around 10 minutes after the start of class. If you're not there, that might be considered a half an absence if you come in late, or a full absence if you don't come in at all. And attendance includes staying until the end of class unless we've arranged otherwise. I used to have a student who would sit in the back of the class as soon as I got done taking attendance, and I turned my back to write on the board, she'd pitch class. So I like to put this one in there, stay there until the end of class. But if you have to leave early, please just let me know ahead of time. 3 unexcused absences can cause you to lose a letter grade. So if you had 85% with a B, you could actually drop to a C. Haven't had that happen very often. 5 or more absences could cause you to fail the class. Seldom have to pull the trigger on that because people who miss too many classes fail the class all on their own. But I leave those there. If you're missing all kinds of classes, you should expect a impact on your grade. Academic integrity policy, everybody knows what cheating is. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what plagiarism is, but if not, click on that link and it'll take you out to the student code of conduct. ADA statement, if anybody has an IEP or special accommodations, please send those to me. I'd like to get them today. I can't give you any special accommodations unless I actually have that document. So if you have them, an IEP or whatever, you can get a letter of accommodation from Student Disability Services, and then I can honor those as required. Okay, no problem whatsoever. Campus safety, there's some information there about the place where they notify you if something is going wrong, including snow days. As far as additional information goes, there's the Learning Support Center. I don't know how many of you have used it, but you know there are a bunch of tutors up on the 4th floor of the library, right as you get off the elevators. There may be a TESL tutor there. I haven't been told yet, but 301 and 310 are 2 of the primary classes that may actually find good use out of the tutor. So as soon as I find out who that person is and what their hours are, I will get that information to you. You've already paid for those tutoring services through your tuition, so there's no additional cost to do that. And secondly, you can actually set up appointments so that you know that you're going to get in there. They'll take walk-ins, but you may go in at a very busy time, and so a walk-in doesn't get you anything. But please be aware that the Learning Support Center, which I think is now called the Learning Success Center, is open and available to you. And then here's one last thing. I'm just putting this in now. This is the first semester I'm actually putting this in. I can give you due date extensions occasionally. Okay, we can arrange that because I know that life happens and suddenly you've got a family emergency, or suddenly you're sick perhaps, or some other thing happens. I can give you an extension, but I do require that extension to be probably at least 24 hours in advance, right? Because it's like, you owe me the homework at 12:15. If you call me at 12 and say, can I have an extension? I'm not likely to be giving you an extension. I require a valid reason. I might actually look for documentation, although typically not. But if you're going to need an extension for something, please contact me and give me a shot at giving you one. Okay? You can't overuse it, and I don't guarantee that every time you want one, I'll give you one, particularly if you don't have a very good reason. But don't think that I won't give you one. I can be pretty flexible. Okay? Now, that has taken us through all the policy statements. Any questions on the policy statements? All righty. Then the things that we're going to be working on, we're going to have various things that are going to get scored. There will be reading. You know, most of the readings are probably pretty short. It's not like 50 pages at a time, but they are kind of complicated and complex, and it's oftentimes information you're not very familiar with, so it requires reading and rereading. But we're going to be reading the text and a few additional readings. We're going to be, after this first 2 weeks, hopefully we'll be back in the classroom at the beginning of February. and which time I'm really going to be expecting you to participate in discussions. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't participate now, but it's a little bit easier in a classroom environment. And so we'll be discussing what we're reading and the homework as we go along. There is a 3-part language analysis project, which I'll describe to you in another week or so. I'll show you a couple things about it today. But essentially, there will be 3 parts turned in separately. Each one will be worth 10 points, which equates to 10% of the grade. There is a midterm exam, I think in week 8. There is a non-cumulative final exam at the end of the semester. These are going to be taken in class. So you'll have, an hour and a half on the first, or an hour and 15 minutes or so on the first one, and almost 2 hours on the second one. We're going to have a lot of homework assignments. And like I said, those will be randomly checked throughout the semester. I'll just walk in and say, let's see your homework. Those will be on linguistic topics and the skills we're trying to develop. And then finally, there's the attendance and class participation. So basically, I'm going to take all of these things, which will add up to 100% or 100 points or 100%. And your final grade is basically going to be broken down as 90 to 100, 80 to 89, and 70 to 79 for A, B, C, etc. Just pretty much the same thing everybody else is using. And here are the parts. The project, 30%, homework 10, attendance 10, the in-class midterm, and the in-class final at 25 each. All right. And I've broken out the course outline, and you'll be able to see all 15 weeks here. We've got spring break right after the midterm. So we'll be taking the midterm on Thursday, and we'll take the in-class final at the regular time for the final exam schedule. I will mention one thing, and I know this gets to be a confusing point sometimes. When I put TR on here, I'm talking about Thursday specific. Okay? I know that in the schedule, they put a T for Tuesday, which I also did. Here's one, a T for Tuesday. But I didn't think about it until now, but I put TR in there for Thursday. So looking at this week, this is the week of the 17th of January. Monday, yesterday was the 17th. So this covers this week. You've got some reading to do. Chapter 1 in the textbook, pages 1 through 3, and the 9 ideas about language, which is one of the documents that's already on D2L for you. And if you don't have the textbook yet, the introductory chapter is out there also. Next week, we'll have some reading about the history of English, one reading on Tuesday, another one on Thursday, and then you can work your way down through here. Now, I have not put down the actual homework exercises that I expect to assign as we go along, because we sometimes go a little bit faster or a little bit slower than expected. So what I will do is each time there's going to be homework assigned, I will let you know. I usually put it in a PowerPoint with a red background and white, so it's white letters, so it's real hard to miss. But it'll normally be either exercises out of the textbook, or in some cases, it'll be handouts that I give you. Okay? And so you can kind of go down through here and you can see all of these pieces that we're going to be picking up along the way. And I don't expect to go any faster. We might end up going a little bit slower. It'll kind of depend on you guys, but we'll see what we get. Okay? And so you can go through that. And I think it was probably Jen asked about those optional readings. You can see them right here, Tuesday optional, Tuesday optional. Otherwise, it's P&R is the textbook and the pages that are there. Okay? Now, one of the things that you'll notice in the textbook, which may strike you as strange, is that I don't do the textbook in the order the authors wrote it. And I don't know why they wrote it the way that they did, quite honestly. But what we're going to be doing is we'll read chapter 1, and then we're going to jump out to chapter 6, and we're going to go backwards, 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2. The reason is we're going to look at sounds first, then we're going to look at word parts, then we're going to look at sentences, then we're going to look at meaning, and then we're going to look at a special kind of meaning. It only makes sense to me. Why they did it the opposite direction, I have no clue. It's the only book I think I've seen that actually does that. So that's the way we're going to run through that part. Okay? So that's the whole of the syllabus. Does anybody have any questions?
You said that we use Google Docs. You don't mind if we give you a link to those Google Docs, right?
I would prefer if you, well, let's see. The one place where I would prefer that you actually gave me the document, but I can download it. It's no, but that's no big problem in this class. That's not a problem. So yeah, you can do that.
Thank you.
I prefer to just get it on paper, but let's see, for anything you have to turn in, I think the things that you have to turn in are going to be hard copies, so it may not work out just to do a Google Doc. Okay?
I have a question about like the homework stuff.
Yeah.
So is it the homework is not always going to be out of the textbook?
Not always. There'll probably be a few that are going to be done on a handout.
Okay, and then just like have that done at the beginning of the class.
Yeah. So you would basically bring the handout. If we had a handout and a couple of exercises, you just bring them both. And I literally, what I do is this. I walk around the room and I take a piece of paper and I say, show me your homework. You got it? Great. I'll give you a slip of paper. You'll fill out your name and how much of the homework you got done and the date. I collect those up from everybody. And then I post them into the book. Okay? And so I'm just going to literally ask you to show me the homework. And again, if you're not going to be in class for some reason, take pictures and email them to me. That way you'll get credit. You can get full credit for them. Okay?
Cool.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Just a quick note on the way I've got the D2L site set up. You know it's 301, it's section 4. Given that we're going to be meeting in class most of the time, I will just give you this information directly. But I did want you to know a couple of things. Under content, you will see that there are a few folders. The first one would be Syllabus and Assignments. You can always find a copy of the syllabus right here. And the assignments that I'm talking about here are term project part 1, part 2, and part 3. Those will be due as they're shown on the course outline later in the semester. But something I want you to pay close attention to is, look, I have examples down here of past work. And this shows you what it is that I'm looking for in each one of those parts. Okay? Now, I've done this class and another one this way, and I'm always surprised people never go out and look at the examples. So please notice that you've got the assignment up here, and the assignment, you know, it's just a PDF document, and it opens up and it tells you what I want you to do. But in addition to that, there is an example that says, okay, here's somebody who did a good job on it. And that's sitting out there kind of similar. Okay? Now, don't miss that part. The other thing that I wanted to point out is PowerPoints and mind maps. I am going to put out PowerPoints and mind maps, which are basically my presentation materials, so that you've got them after class. So you can go back out there and use them. The one thing that we're going to talk about today is going to be this linguistics introduction. At the end of class, it'll be there. Next time, we're going to be talking about Daniel's 9 ideas about language. It'll be out there at the end of class. And then finally, the additional readings, Daniel's 9 ideas for Thursday and Parker and Riley, chapter 1, pages 1 to 3 is out there. So both of those are out there under additional readings if you haven't already taken them out. Okay? So again, if you get lost, it's a pretty simple website because we're going to do most things in class. However, just in case you get lost, you know how to get in touch with me. So Lupe, how are you going to get in touch with me?
With email?
Okay. You don't like me enough to talk to me?
I prefer email.
Jeez. Okay, that's fine. Sometimes if it's a long answer, I'll try to get a hold of you by phone because I hate retyping a whole long answer. But anyway, usually email is fine. All right. Let's see. Gally, how are you going to get in touch with me?
I could go to like a Zoom.
Okay. Yeah, we could go Zoom. And Mandy, you already know me, so what are you going to call me? Mandy. Mandy? Isabel, you don't know me. What are you going to call me?
From your cell phone? That's
Oh, you're going to call me on my cell phone, and when you do, you're going to say, hi, who?
Hi, I'm Isabel.
No, well, that's fine. Hi, you're supposed to say, hi, John. This is Isabel. Not supposed to call me Mr. Armour, right? Diana knows. What do you call me, Diana?
John.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, so very good. I got one last thing then we're going to kind of wrap up today, and that is to talk about what in the heck is linguistics. Because I bet that there's nobody here who's taken a full linguistics course. You might have taken the TESL 109, which is kind of linguistics, or you might have taken another FYE course that's kind of like that. But I kind of think that most of you have not taken a course. So that means that we've got to figure out what it is that we're trying to do here. I'm going to throw up the slideshow. I don't want to do that. I want to start from there. Everybody can see it, right? Sebastian, nod your head if you can see it. You can see it? Cool. I'll assume everybody can. Great. So let's move. So what are we talking about here? Linguistics. Well, first off, my introductory slide is you're all taking TESL courses. I assume most of you are trying to get your ESL endorsement, and you're going to be teachers. And so during this process, we're really focusing on two different things. We're talking about learning and teaching, just basically the theories and practices that you're probably learning in most of your education classes. And we're also talking about linguistics or language, because what you're faced with is English language learners who don't speak English as well as you. And when we're talking about TESL altogether, we're really looking at this overlap. This overlap between learning and teaching and linguistics. This Venn diagram kind of shows where we're going. We're going to be looking at both of those, certainly throughout the whole TESL program, but also as we're going along, just in this course alone. So that brings us to the main question. What is linguistics? Anybody want to tell me what linguistics is? Diana, I don't want you to feel lonesome because I called on, let's see, Mandy. Diana, what is linguistics?
The study of languages.
Ah, that's an interesting thought. The study of languages. Well, that's kind of true. But it also kind of leads us down a rabbit hole a little bit. Actually, linguistics is the science of language. And notice, as you'll see here on the fourth bullet, I said language, not languages. It's really the science of the phenomenon of language. We could also call it the scientific study of language. Or we could call it the branch of knowledge dealing with language. But what I want you to notice here is that there's two things that are important in each one of those three. I'm saying the capital L language, not in the fourth bullet, little l languages. We're talking about the idea, the process, the science, the phenomenon of language. Now, as Diana mentioned, oftentimes the way we get to studying about language, big L language, is through the study of how little l languages work. And so we may be interested to see that Spanish works this way, and English works this way, and German works this way, and hey, look at the things that are in common there. So we're really looking at language as a phenomenon. And so if you hear somebody says, I'm a linguist, don't ask them how many languages you speak, because they may only speak one. They're looking and studying this thing at kind of a different level than becoming bilingual, trilingual, or a polyglot, somebody who speaks 3 or more languages. So capital L language is what we're really looking at. And when we do that, we are going to be looking at 5 primary areas here. There's a 6th one I'll talk about, and we'll get to if we can, but there are 5 primary areas of language: phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, and semantics. And we're going to look at each one of these in turn. But if you were to ask a linguist, what is the grammar of a language? They would describe the grammar of a language in terms of these 5 items. They wouldn't be teaching it in terms of parts of speech and pluralization necessarily, and how you string a sentence, how you change a verb from present tense to past tense. Those things fall into different areas here, but these are the things that they call the 5 key components or the 5 key parts of the grammar of a language. So let's take one and get started here with phonetics. Anybody want to tell me what phonetics is? Sure they do. Oh, Sebastian, I know you're not shy, man. What is phonetics? Got a clue?
Does that do with like the sound?
It does. It has to do with the sounds. It's going to go basically, and it's looking at the study of sound production and perception. We're going to only really worry about sound production. Perception is something you could cover in another class, but we are going to be looking at how we create sounds. And when we're talking about phonetics, we're really talking about the study of sound production of individual sounds. How do we make these individual sounds? Now, something that you may never have spent much time thinking about is what is similar between B and P? What is similar between making the sound B and the sound P? Yeah.
You use your top and bottom lip.
Very good. So you're using both of your lips, and they both kind of act the same way, right? I've got B and I've got P, but if we're hearing something different there, so there must be something more. But yes, you're absolutely right. The thing that is similar is the air stops behind 2 closed lips, and those 2 closed lips pop open and the sound comes in. That's what's similar. What's the difference between B and P? Anybody ever take this? Now, I ran into this when I was trying to learn Korean. And the reason was that the B's and P's sound an awful lot alike, but they are different. Anybody got a thought?
Does it have to do with like your tongue as well, like where it's placed?
No, because in this particular case, The B and the P, the tongue, is going to be pretty much in the same spot. So it's not the tongue that's the difference. It's probably something that you haven't thought of. I want you, let's do this, everybody. So I can't see most of you, so I won't even know, and nobody else will know you're doing this. I want you to grab your Adam's apple or grab your throat right here with your thumb and forefinger, and we're going to make two sounds. We're going to make the B sound all by itself, and we're going to make the P sound all by itself. Ready? There's the B. And then make the P. What do you notice? Anybody? Well, the difference between a B and a P is simply that with a B, you should feel vibration going on in your throat down here, right up here in your Adam's apple, your larynx. And when you do, there's none. It's an idea called voicing. So B and P are very similar, but they are also different. And the same thing happens with S and C, just to make things more complicated. And how would you ever use this with your students? Well, I'll give you a good example. How and where is the sound R made? You could think about this with Korean and Japanese students, as well as Spanish speakers. How do you make a good American R? Ralph retches rapidly, rebelliously. There you go. 4 words. R. How do you tell a student where to make an R when they're not having an R in their language?
With their tongue?
Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to make it with your tongue. You're going to make it with your mouth. But what do you tell them about your tongue? Because I could go, and that would be with my tongue, but it wasn't an R. Makes it difficult, right? We're going to talk about how sounds are made. Now, we'll explain this one later on. Now, the next topic is something called phonology. And the question there is, what do you think is phonology? If we said phonetics is the study of sounds, anybody got a guess for phonology? Well, the trick was when I mentioned that phonetics was individual sounds. We figure out how to make a b or a p or an Phonology, though, is actually looking at the whole sound system, and that includes combinations of letters. Now, I'm not talking about spelling, like putting a T with an H gives you a sound. That's not the way linguistics works. But you can find out that there are, depending on where a sound occurs in a word, it may change. Or depending on the sounds in front of it or the sounds behind it, makes that sound change. And so we're looking at the way that sounds pattern in interaction. So here's my favorite example. Ready? It's, listen to this. Bearsy dotes and dozy dotes and little lambsy divey, kizzly divey too, wouldn't chew. Bearsy dotes and dozy dotes and little lambsy divey, kizzly divey too, wouldn't chew. What did I say? Anybody familiar with this nursery rhyme? Well, what's a mersey? What's a z? Or what's a dotes? Z and dotes? Those are 2 words I see them twice. Z dotes and Z dotes. And then I see Z a 3rd time because I got Z divey. What's happening here? Well, I would say that if you say that at a normal speed, Mersey dotes and dozy dotes and little lambsy divey, kidsly divey too, wouldn't chew. If you don't look at the words, you may actually hear them. But it's something that looks kind of like this. Mares eat oats and does eat oats and little lambs eat ivy. Kids'll eat ivy too, wouldn't you? Now, which one of those sounds more natural? Even though you don't necessarily catch the words right away, mares eat oats and does eat oats, and little lambs eat ivy. Kids will eat ivy too, wouldn't you? So this is kind of the idea of phonology. Given where sounds are placed in a word, or given the words that come in front of it or behind it, we suddenly see things like an S. Mares, this S actually sounds more like a Z. Mares. It doesn't sound like mares, like going down to the south side and hear people talk about the bears. We don't say the mares, it's mares. And interestingly, it doesn't sound like the S is over here. It sounds like a Z, and it actually seems to connect to the E. This stuff all runs together. This is the phonology of the language. And so we will be studying that. Morphology, we're running out of time, so I'm going to tell you what it is. It's the study of the structure of words and how we change those words in form and meaning. You've done this a million times as in using English. Every time you use an S to pluralize something, or you put an ED on the end of a verb to talk about the past, or you put prefixes and other suffixes on words, it changes the meanings. And so we can formally study how those happen. And here's an example, a couple of examples from different languages. If you take English, we could have the word limit. It could be a noun, it could be a verb, but the word limit. And we can change that word to something slightly different by putting an S on the end. And we could say limits as plural nouns, or limits as he limits my time on the computer, where we change the verb. And unfortunately, for somebody who's only hearing it, that sounds exactly the same as limits apostrophe is. There's no difference in the sound there. As English speakers, we know the difference from context, but our students may not. And we could take limit, we could take that verb limit, put ED on the end and call it past tense. It's something I limited in the past. And I can put an on the front and turn the whole thing into an adjective. So we've got all of these things, little bitty changes that we can be making to these words. And one limit is different than two limits. That S means something different. Cats is different than cat. Spanish does it a lot. For anybody who's a Spanish speaker or has studied it, we take the verb comer, which is to eat, and to say I eat, we change it to como, and to change it to you ate, it's comiste, or they ate, comieron. And so they change a lot more on these verb conjugations than English does. And they also do things like pluralize. Well, we could take papel and they can change it to papeles, or we could actually throw something on here and go papeles rojos. Because now we're putting the adjective there, but we got to make it match gender and count. Tinta roja, it's the same kind of a thing going on there. And Korean's got a really neat way of doing this. They could take the word chongi, and that just means paper. But they can go out here and go chongiga, which means they're using the word chongi or paper as the subject of a sentence. Or they could change it to chongiru, which marks it as the direct object. So all of these languages have various forms of morphology going on. And we're going to study that. The way they do morphology may very well be different, but tend to be languages do this. to greater or lesser extents. Syntax is going to be the study of how words and phrases, things that we're going to change to called constituents later, combine to make sentences. And so we could look at two sentences. The dog is there. Dog is the subject. Is the verb. The dog is there. And we put the subject first and the verb second. But then we look at the next thing and go, where is the dog? Well, somebody in Spanish could probably go where the dog is, and everything would be the same. But an English speaker is going to change it around. The question is why? Well, it's a simple rule. You'll run into it in 310 for sure, where we end up realizing that we invert subjects and verbs when we ask questions. So normally we will put the subject first and the verb second. And then my favorite question is to say, do we always do that? Just about always, but not always. Because if we use neither and nor, look at that. Those are both declaratives. It is neither a dog. It would be the subject here. But over here, nor is it a cat. In this case, after nor, the subject comes after the verb. Semantics is another area that we're going to talk about briefly. It's going to be about the study of meaning. And so it's not like you hear on TV, oh, that's just semantics. When somebody wants to make an argument about what you said in disagreement to what they said, they say, oh, that's just semantics. Well, that's true. It's probably semantics, but it's not something you just blow off like that. If we're talking about the study of the meaning of words, it's a pretty big, important difference. And you can take a word like waste. And so you can look at this and go, what does waste mean? You can come up with all kinds of things. It's how I throw away time, or I throw away something else. Or I have what does waste mean, the place I put my belt. And from an English speaker's perspective, we would recognize those as different because we'd read them, or we'd recognize them differently in context. But for our ELL students, waste is waste. And they don't recognize a difference in terms of hearing it or speaking it until they learn that difference and know what the meaning is. And how about smart? What does smart mean? What does smart mean? Well, sometimes it could be intelligent, like a real smart guy. It could also be more sarcastic, like a smart aleck. It could be a verb, and when something stings, you say, wow, that's smart. Or if you go to Southeast Asia, somebody says to go into this club, you have to be wearing smart casual, which means you can't be wearing jeans and tennis shoes. You got to be dressed up to some degree. So we've got all of these words, and we kind of are able to pull them apart and understand them, but our students many times will not. So how do we know? Well, sometimes we read it, sometimes we rely on context, but they may not be able to. And another layer of problem here is that words that sound like they mean the same thing don't always have exactly the same meaning. So you could think about the difference between thin and scrawny. Which would you rather be? Would you rather be thin or scrawny? Thin. Why?
Well, scrawny essentially is not a good term. It means that you just like you don't have any muscle.
Okay, so that's a pretty good explanation. But you mentioned it right at the beginning. It means something extra to be scrawny. And as you said, it's not positive, right? It's kind of a negative term. Thin and scrawny. I'd rather be thin than scrawny. Scrawny sounds like somebody who's weak with no muscles. Would you rather be young or immature? They both mean the same basic thing. It's somebody who is not an adult, perhaps. Young and immature. Well, nobody wants to be called immature. Even when they're little kids, they don't want to be called immature. But to be young is not such a big deal. And frugal and cheap. You want to be frugal or do you want to be cheap? Which would you rather have people say? And finally, one of my other favorite examples is big and large. Man, big and large seem like they are the same word. But you don't go around calling one person your big brother and another one your large brother. Large brother in that sentence is kind of like the real opposite of scrawny, and somebody might take it negative. So in the end, we've got semantics, and we have to deal with the fact that we've got lots of different meanings that we have to pay attention to. And sometimes those meanings are connotations, emotional baggage carried around with the word scrawny, cheap, or immature. You got to pay attention. We can do that. Students may not. A few other areas, you can just look this over if you pull up the PowerPoint that's out there. First language acquisition is how children learn their first language. Second is how we learn subsequent languages, whether they're second, third, or fourth. People study how linguistics change or how the use of language changes in different social settings. Psycholinguistics is how your brain processes all of this stuff. We can look at discourse analysis, the study of language above the sentence. In schools, we often spend a lot of time thinking about languages at the word and sentence level, but there's a lot to be learned from the language beyond the sentence. And then pragmatics, one of the cool areas to talk about. It's kind of like semantics. It deals with meaning, but it's the difference between what was spoken, the actual words used, and what is said or what was meant. So if I'm sitting in your living room and I say it's hot in here, I'm probably not giving you a weather report. I'm probably saying, can we open a window or turn up the air conditioning? What was spoken was, this is the temperature here. What was said was a request to make a change to it. So that's an area to look at. Typology, we can study how languages are the same. Computational linguistics and corpus linguistics are a couple of ways that we can deal with computers and language. And historical linguistics looks at how language changes over time. You'll re-look at those, they may be of some interest to you, but we will be covering the 5 main areas, and hopefully we will get to pragmatics and be able to spend a little time on the 6th one, pragmatics. Normally not considered a part of the grammar. Okay, so I'm stopping. I'm a little bit behind to write it up on my evaluation. Did not end the first class on time, but I'm going to sit here until everybody else is gone. So if you want to stay and ask me questions, you can. And if you don't want to ask me questions, you don't have to, or do you have to stay? But I like to think of myself as the captain of the ship. I'm going down. If I'll be the last one into the lifeboat. Sebastian, you're in my grammar class too, right? All right. You and Jen both got to take a double dose of armor. Oh. Okay, I'm done until you're, and I'll be here till you're gone. See you later. Only 2 people are waving back. Everybody else is the black square.
I have a question.
Okay.
For the next class, to be ready for the next class, we just have to read the 2 readings that are okay.
That's exactly correct. We don't have any homework probably we'll probably get into week 3 before the first homework hits. Hey, have a good one.
Hi, I have a question. This is Christina.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Tere?
Today?
Yes. I mean, You can pronounce it. It doesn't matter. Everyone is pronouncing it a little different, but it's a Polish last name.
Okay, so I was gonna ask that next, okay? It's like I'm looking at somebody named Christoph and everybody says Christoph.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying everyone, like, I'm not obviously Polish, but like people who speak the language, they pronounce it completely different than me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was so confused. I completely forgot that today it was remote, and I went to the class. I got there and I was like, oh no, I completely forgot it was remote.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I like it late, very late. I was like, well, at least I will, get a little bit of, the class, and I went through all the syllabus and everything.
For the syllabus?
Yes, I have it right next to me. Yeah.
Good, all right, well,
The
I
recording
did
has
record it,
stopped.
but given you've been through the syllabus, that was the most important part here for the end. That's good.
Not too good, but I mean, I was like, why am I got into the classroom and I see no one. I was like, oh my God. I ran. I was like, okay, well, at least I'm gonna get in a little bit in the class. But yeah, so I know, like, I noticed that you said like you're gonna take some points when you're late. That's why I was like, oh my God. But I'm gonna catch up, after today for sure. And one question that I have with the books. So there's one book that is just required. The other stuff is online, correct?
Correct?
Okay. Okay. I think I just have to go through it again and double check, making sure I understand everything. But yeah, I heard also that if we have any question, just either call you or Zoom class, call or email of anything. Yeah. So
Please feel real free to talk to me and call me or email me or see me in my office.
okay. And
Really an easy class, and so it will raise questions, and it's much easier to get those questions answered than struggling through it.
oh yeah, definitely. I will answer. I will definitely be one of them. If I don't understand something, I will definitely ask you. One more question. So for the hold on. For when it's gonna be remote, you will tell us when we're gonna be in person. For right now.
You can watch the announcements that come out of school. At this point in time, it's just this week and next week.
Okay.
But I could see them changing their mind and say, no, we're going to make it longer.
Okay.
But we'll at least meet for the 2 weeks, and then hopefully we'll get back into the classroom.
Okay. Sounds good. I keep an eye. Thank
All right.
you. Have a good day.
All right.
Bye bye.
Everyone,
Thank you.
let's see, Ashley.
Hi.
I got a question?
Oh, yes. I was just asking about the textbook. So I was gonna order it, and it was saying, do we need an access code or anything, or just the book?
Just the book. Oh yeah, there isn't any access code with it, so you just need the book.
Okay. That was it.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yep. You too. Hi, Mandy. Mandy? Mandy, are you there?